Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 8 and I'm joined as always by my good friends Villy.
Good afternoon.
And Jody.
Bonjour.
Continuing the French motif, Joe.
Oh, oui, oui.
Okay, so wow, guys, we've got a lot to cover in this episode. First of all, the story content we're covering obviously is chapters 42 through 47. But before we get stuck into that stuff, we've got a bit of housekeeping to do. First things first, I want to mention that we have set up a number of social media accounts. We are now live and kicking on Twitter at Blood and Ash Pod, which is not ideal, but it's better than Blood and Ashes 2. The person sitting on at Blood and Ashes has not posted for more than 10 years in Twitter. I DM'd him and asked him if I can have that handle now. No response. But on Facebook, we are Blood and Ashes Podcast. And then obviously people can always reach us at the website contact from bloodandashespodcast.com. And also email me directly at moritz@bloodandashespodcast.com. So there are multiple avenues through which to get in touch with us. So have at it. Let's see. Callbacks to last week's episode. And in fact, this time it'll be more than last week's episode. But there are a couple quick ones. The first one is Villy mentioned that Rand blixemed off the wall. And I realized that not many or any non-South Africans would understand what the word blixem means, but it is basically just he fell hard. Suffice to say, he got beat up in the process.
I think he fucked off the wall, should be the correct terminology.
Yes. That's
the direct translation.
That's the doctor's terminology. We also mentioned in the last episode that Galad was kind of jealous of Elaine and Gawain. But I went back and when I was editing the show and I heard that mentioned, I seem to recall someone specifically saying that Galad is not jealous of them. And Gawain actually says at one point, there's a quote where he goes, when Elaine, shits on Galad after he's left or something, he goes, "There you go too far, Elaine. Galad does not know the meaning of envy. Twice he has saved my life with none to know if he held his hand. If he had not, he would be your first prince of the sword in my place." So Galad is as straight and narrow as you get. And the last one was, we were speculating about Elaine and Egwene's Argers that they chose. Elaine did choose green, but apparently Egwene was raised to the Amelin seat directly from Accepted. She never had an opportunity to choose an Arger, so she never had one. Which is crazy. Like I thought I would have remembered something like
There's
that.
no bias in that.
No.
Yeah, none.
No, I've come to terms that I don't remember almost.
Yes.
I remember some of the characters' names, some of the main characters.
And then there was one big one sent in to us by our number one fan at the moment, Adrian. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who got in touch with me to say that when we spoke about Slayer, originally I sort of made an offhanded comment that I think Slayer was originally Lan's cousin or something. And then when we read about the family tree in Camelin, it became obvious that no, it was Luke Mantier was Rand's uncle. He's the guy that becomes Slayer. But as Adrian pointed out, Slayer is actually two entities combined. He is also Isam Mandragoran, who is Lan's cousin. And that is actually, they mention Isam in some of the chapters that we'll be covering today. But Isam's mother tried to outrun some Trollocs. They were run down by Trollocs in the Borderlands, and no one knows what became of them. But he ended up growing up in the town, which is this town in the Blight, full of like Shadow Aiel and Dark Friends and all kinds of monstrosities. And when Luke went to the Blight to seek glory. He also went missing. And at some point, the two of them became one being, and they actually appear in different forms in the waking world and in the world of dreams. Mostly Luke in the waking world and Isom in the world of dreams, but that's not set. That can also change. So that fraction of a memory that I had about it being Lan's cousin was spot on. It is literally,
You're
it's
vindicated.
literally his cousin. I feel good about that one.
Good man.
Okay, so with all of that nonsense out of the way, let's get stuck into what we all came here for. We left off last time with the big reunion at the Queen's Blessing, and then everyone going up to the room and seeing Matt and what state he was in, Lan doing a bit of teleportation magic, and Moraine basically getting ready to heal Matt with the use of her Ungreal, and that's where we left off. So right now, we'll jump straight into chapter 42, Remembrance of Dreams, and it's over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Moritz. Yes. Previously on Blood and Ashes podcast, we left Moraine healing Matt upstairs with the Angriel, and everyone's freaked out, obviously, because he was Moraine was hissing at him, and he was trying to stab her and wouldn't give up, trying to poke a dagger in her eye. Everyone remembers that. Good. So after they leave the room, Moraine kicks them out. Obviously, this is like a doctor. Everyone needs to get out. And they leave the room and they all head to the library because nobody wants to go sit anywhere in public. They remember that Elida is looking for them. The White Cloaks are looking for them. Dark Friends are looking for them. Generally just being looked for by unsavory characters.
The Dark One himself.
The Dark One himself. Oh, yeah, him. Forgot about him. So they all head to the library, of course. Rand leads them down there. And of course, everyone freaks out again when they see Loyal. Rand, as he walks in, he only notices, like, while 5 steps, he's into the room that no one's behind him, and he can't figure out why. And he's like, oh, yeah, the giant Ogier dude sitting over there. So Loyal is stretched out on his chaise lounge. He's reading a book.
Not going to play that down.
I'm going to French the fuck out of this. He's reading with a cat sleeping on him. He's just, he's just loving it. Real nerd, kind of like us. Just lying on couches reading books all day. But, of course, he's a polite young Ogier at 90 years old. So he gets up when everyone comes in and he gives them a formal bow. And there's introductions all around. Okay, these are my friends I've been waiting for. Here they are. Everyone's happy. Perrin is the first to speak. And he asks specifically about the steading and if it's really a safe place and everything. And Rand has noticed previously his eyes. There's also this look of resignation. Perrin doesn't seem to be afraid or worried like everyone else. He just looks resigned to his fate. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like now that Matt is being healed, that Perrin has now taken the place of the wounded friend that Rand needs to worry about now, like instantaneously. I mean, they've just walked up, they've just left the room from upstairs 5 minutes ago, and now he's got someone else to worry about. So yeah, he's got now issues with Perrin. It's just issues.
The damaged goods.
Damaged goods all over. So after some lengthy stories from Loyal, he starts explaining, his journeys and everything. And they mention as well, like Loyal, he thinks every story needs to start with at least 300 years of history. Otherwise, it's a shit story. So it's ages. They're listening to all these lengthy stories from him. And eventually the door opens and there's Matt. And he is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and he's wearing his coat. And he's smiling, and everyone's shocked to see him. Like, he's acting all normal. He's back to his old self with this, his cheeky grin, and he's probably got a badger in his pocket somewhere. So he apologizes to everyone and says, like, really, guys, like, I'm sorry. You can't blame me. I was acting crazy, and I'm sorry. And everyone forgives him, of course. And there's tears, and there's laughter, and there's backslapping, and the ribbing, and yes, all of that stuff. Everyone's back to normal. Everyone's just glad that everyone's alive, and we have a little, whew, all right. Before shit hits the fan again 5 minutes later. So yeah, Moraine starts when he sits down, when Matt comes in the room, he sits down, he automatically touches his coat to see if something's there. And Rand is like, takes a breath in, and so Moraine explains to him, like, listen, yes, he's still got the dagger. It's been too long. I can't separate him, even with an Ungreal. We need to still take him to the tower. What I've done is cleanse the taint from him, but it will be back eventually, and we need all of the Aes Sedai to help this guy. get clean. He's got a monkey on his back. Intervention time.
Yeah, he's got to go cold turkey.
He's got to go cold turkey. So they need to get him to Tarvalon or Tarvalon, however you pronounce that. Vili, how do you pronounce that?
Valon.
There you go. That's canon now. So yeah, and then everybody's like, well, we need to get him to Tarvalon. This is where, and it's a good thing this is where we're going. And Moraine kind of gives him a sidelong glance, and I've got like, oh, this is where they are going. Ellipses, ... Yes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So Moraine and Loial are introduced. Loial is also very stoked to meet an Aes Sedai. And when she asks him, like, listen, would you please excuse us? We have some plans to make. He looks at all confused, and Rand's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, he's coming with us. And she says basically what in today's language would be, cool, whatever. Is basically the wheel wills, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills, like whatever.
Yep.
All right, he's on board. He's part of the pattern now. Rand has said so there you go. So Moraine mentions that the White Cloaks are looking for Perrin and Egwene, and Rand is surprised. We mentioned this in a previous episode. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
And and it comes up in this chapter as well. That and Loial kind of looks at Rand and says, like, come on, Rand, you can think clearer than this. Why would they be after you? And he's like, dude, like, everyone's after us. It's just my natural reaction that they're looking for us. No, it's Perrin. He murdered some people, and they were probably looking for him. So Loial also then mentions that Elida said something, and then Moraine's like, "What, Elida? What's this about Elida?" And then that whole story comes out about Rand, blixoming off the wall. Now that everyone knows what blixom means, and he's like, I just wanted to go look at the false dragon, and then I met the prince and the princess, and the queen, and Elida, and Gareth, and all the whole story comes out, and it. Moraine's just like, what the fuck? Just
nice laying low, Rand.
Laying low, guys. Come on. Yeah, there's a lot of shit comes to the foreground in this chapter. So anyway, that comes out. Mm-hmm. Rand's defense is that he just climbed a wall. He didn't do anything wrong. And Matt says, like, well, that's what I always say, like, yeah. I can totally relate, Rand. And then the story comes out about the prince and the princess and Elaine, and like he remembers Morghese and how beautiful she was, just like her daughter Elaine. And Egwene's like, "Who's Elaine? What? Who's this chick now?" So during this exchange, Loial mentions that a man also came to Steading Shangtai and said that the Dark One intends to blind the eye of the world. And then Perrin's like, "Hey, that sounds very familiar to the story we heard when we were hanging with the Tinkers, with the hippies with style." And the same story, like about the Aiel that were chasing the Trollocs, or the Trollocs were chasing the Aiel into the waste, and her dying breath was that the sight blinder means to blind the eye of the world. And then the boys eventually tell Egwene, they give each other all this knowing look, and they nod, and they're like, okay, yeah, we should tell Moraine this. And Moraine's like, tell me what? What now?
Jesus, boys, what?
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, look, we've all been having dreams, the same dreams with Baalzamon in them. Saying it out loud now, it does seem like she did mention to them, please, if you have dreams, tell me about it. If someone in Shadow Logoth gives you a dagger, tell me about it.
They are 18.
They are 18-year-old boys. A lot of this chapter is them talking about all the boys and girls they've met along the way. They're just a horny bunch of teenagers, who have no idea what they're... Elsie comes up, yeah, everybody.
Aram, Elaine, Min.
Aram, just so much jealousy and testosterone and estrogen flying around. But anyway, I've lost track of what I was talking about. Oh yes, they're going to blind the eye of the world and Baalzamon and everything, and like also that Baalzamon told them all, like, the eye of the world will not serve you. So now Moraine has 3 different sources of information telling them all the same thing: the eye of the world, the eye of the world, the eye of the world. Now. This seems like a trap. All right. I was thinking about this going like, did they specifically spread that information? Did the Dark One or spread it to get them to go to the Eye of the World and meet them there so that it could kill them?
Hard to do because the man that came to the Steading came 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the Aiel that told the story to the Tinkers was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2 or 3
so,
years.
I mean, the Dark One has an eternity. So,
yeah.
maybe that doesn't matter. But I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't
could
know.
it not be because the way the Eye of the World is in the Blight is the only place that's so corrupted that they could get out of the prison that they were in over there?
Maybe they were trying to lure anyone that felt that they were in a position to do anything with the Eye of the World. So maybe the Dragon Reborn, to get them to come into this extremely hostile environment before they were ready, and maybe take care of them before they, grabbed Kalandor and proclaimed themselves the Dragon Reborn and that sort of stuff. So yes, maybe it's like one of many, sort of traps they laid all over the place. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it also does show you the length. I mean, the time frame of this plan. 20 years ago, they started planning to blind the Eye of the World.
If not longer.
If not longer, yeah. 2,000
Well,
years ago.
as far as we know. As far as we know. Yeah, and then it's at that point that Moraine says that she can protect them if they stay close to her, and she can protect their dreams and everything. And Perrin also pipes up at this point that I think I've already found my protection. And she looks at him knowingly and for a long time until he averts his eyes, and she's like, yeah, I suppose you're right. So she still doesn't quite trust this whole wolf brother scenario. You fear what you don't know, basically, and Aes Sedai are no different. So we get some more info. This is where they give them more, where the boys start explaining to Moraine about the dreams that they've been having and what happened in the dreams and what Baalzamon said and all that stuff. We've talked about this before. I won't go into too much of it. And that's also where Loyal pops up with his, all three are Ta'veren. So like, it's not just Rand, it's these other guys as well. Like all this realization starting to happen. So with all this info, Moraine decides that they must head to the Eye of the World and warn the Green Man that this is coming. Like either this is an early warning, we've got some luck, or it's a trap. But either way, we've got to do something. We can't go to Tarvalon as we previously planned. So plans are changed, guys. And by the way, the Eye of the World is in the Blight, and everybody's like, oh fuck, the Blight.
Oh, great.
Like, what? Now you're gonna take these bunch of kids into the Blight. Of course, Lan is not there because he's outside scouting around and doing his thing. But anyway, and as they're being hunted, they're not going to be able to just waltz out of the city and take their horses and ride to Fal Dara. So Moraine brings up the ways, and Loyal is not keen at all. And in fact, one of the last sentences in that chapter is, if we enter the ways, we all die. And that's how it ends, the chapter.
Yeah.
All right. So that's where we are. New plan. No more Tarvalon. Eye of the World in the Blight. There's just too much evidence pointing that way. We got to change, and all the truth comes out. Egwene and Nynaeve are hugging each other and crying. The shit is hit the fan. Nobody's happy. Now they have to go in the ways. Loyal is not happy. Moraine is not happy that the boys have been lying and keeping secrets. But yeah, no one's happy, and terrible things are about to happen. The end. Moving on.
That's most chapters in this book. I wondered, and I'm probably going to answer my own question here, but it's a note that I took. When Loyal says something, Moraine says the fact about there being upwards of 20 Aes Sedai in the city, and only she's the only one that's not a red. Yes. And Loyal sort of understands and sort of like, when I read that part at the time, I didn't understand why that could be. But I think what you learn a little bit later is that the Reds, in fact, I think it's in the next chapter that I will be summing up, but the Reds blame the Ogier and the Steading for prolonging the breaking by sheltering male channelers during the breaking, because when they go to the Steading, they're separated from the one power and the Taint. But Moraine, she placates Loyal and she says, look, I'm of the blue, and we think that you spared the world complete destruction, because if all of them went crazy at the same time, who knows what could have happened. So by sort of staying there damaged a little bit longer, you lessen the intensity of the damage that they did. So yeah, like I said, answering my own questions.
Flattening the curve.
Yes. Man, that's a 2020 joke if I ever heard one.
Yes, all of you listening in the future. Google that.
Moraine has a visceral reaction to hearing Elida's name.
Yeah.
Like,
no, she did.
she knows to avoid Elida. Like,
At all
she already
costs.
knows. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's sort of, she doesn't say it outright, but I mean, as a reader, you realize after the previous interaction that Rand had with Elida, coupled with Moraine's reaction to hearing that she is in the mix, that she's one to be avoided.
Indeed, as are most Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also this is another thing that came up that I wanted to discuss here. Well, just mention is that the boys didn't tell Moraine about the dagger. They didn't tell her about their dreams, and that is because Aes Sedai are untrustworthy. Everyone that they've met that's not an Aes Sedai said, "Be careful of Aes Sedai. Be careful of Aes Sedai." And so they are careful, and they don't tell them. But that's an Aes Sedai fault. That's her own fault.
Yes.
And her sister's fault for being untrustworthy people that nobody wants to share information with. So
totally, we've said it before that Moraine's not exactly doing herself any favors when she's
Yeah.
doing things like telling them that she would rather kill them than let the Dark One have them, or sinking the ferry after they cross the River Taryn. There's a couple instances where she also, instead of giving them an answer, gives them like one of those half-truth riddle answers, like just not showing any kind of real empathy for them. She actually starts to a couple times now.
Yeah.
But up until then, she has not exactly made herself available to them to listen to. She mentioned it that very first time they met in the town. Tell me if you've had any dreams, or have you had any dreams? Not necessarily saying, when you start getting dreams, tell me.
When the Dark One starts coming into your dreams every night, let me know.
Yes, that's not normal. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
Yeah. What happens in this chapter as well, it's made a specific mention that Rand asks her a direct question. He starts mentioning all the things that, because Baalzamon told him not to trust the Aes Sedai, because the Aes Sedai are going to use you just like they used Raelin, Darksbane, Loghain, and then he names all these false dragons. And Rand asks Moraine directly, do you know these names? And she doesn't say yes or no. She says, the Father of Lies is a good name for the Dark One. And then blah, 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 blah. She never answers the question.
Yeah.
Typical politicians.
And I mean, that's a recurring theme throughout the book, right? All the books. It's like that sort of half truth, bending words to, say something without really saying anything is a common trait.
Well, they're bound to the oath rod, so they have to tell the truth. So she can't, to answer that question directly, she would have to say yes. And that would open another can of worms.
But it's almost like, why? Yeah, she would have to have a good reason to not just tell the outright truth. But I also wonder if sometimes they don't answer in that way out of habit, because it's been like almost their whole lives they are communicating in this way.
Yeah.
So it is frustrating to us, but we didn't grow up in the White Tower and swear on the oath rod. Like, we don't wield the power of Aes Sedai, so obviously it's not super relatable. What else, Vil? Anything from that one?
No, that was a pretty good wrap up there by Joe. I think.
All right, let's roll on. Chapter 43. Oh, that's me. Decisions and apparitions. Okay, so we ended the last chapter obviously with mention of the ways, and Loyal giving that sort of like grim comment. So Rand asks, what are the ways? And Moraine says, okay, well, Loyal, it's your story to tell, because it's a thing of the Ogier. Loyal explains about the steading being a sanctuary for male Aes Sedai during the time of madness. And that's when he says, some of the Aes Sedai blame the Ogier for prolonging the breaking. But that's when Moraine corrects him and says, look, that's what the Reds think, but us Blues thank you for it. So please do continue without feeling like, I'm going to berate you for it. And he explains that as a gift of thanks, the male Aes Sedai created the ways for the Ogier. And when the last of the male channelers or the male Aes Sedai eventually left the steading, they gave the Ogier elders a talisman with which to grow more waygates as they find more steading, and as they build all these other cities, they create the groves, and the Ogier start growing waygates. Loyal then explains that, no Ogier have used the ways in his lifetime and longer. So it's been more than probably 100 years that any Ogier has even been inside the ways. Because they started to darken and deteriorate, and as we know quite well by now, they have become rather terrifying. It is, like even without Machin Shin, like just the complete and utter darkness of them, and the railless ramps going from here to there, and it's just it's not a fun place to be, and it's the taint. I think Moraine describes it's the taint on the power that was used to create them in the first place that is almost manifested in a semi-physical form in those ways. And it's just because of the taint being there when the ways were created, they were tainted themselves. And where they were originally sunny and bright, they are now dark and dank and basically smell of death. So people started going missing in the ways. Machin Shin, sort of started making an appearance. People came out, like, raving mad, screaming about this thing. And even Aes Sedai healers couldn't, like, sort of fix them after that. So obviously nobody is super excited about going through the ways all the way to Fal Dara. My note here is everyone is, in all caps, not amped.
Indeed.
So Moraine just reminds everyone that they're at war with the Shadow, and getting to the Eye of the World is of the highest priority, and the fact that there are 3 Ta'veren in their midst means that they need to all go. Like the pattern is busy adjusting itself around these 3 boys, and it only makes sense that they go. So Rand actually says, okay, well, it's his intention of going. And everyone else sort of just agrees begrudgingly that they will also go. So they spend the night in the library sort of planning. Rand is just pacing around, and Matt's sort of like, gripping his hands together. Perrin is looking resigned, like Jody was saying, like he's just sort of made peace with his fate. And he even says something like, he seems almost eager to get to the Blight, and he goes, "There's good hunting along the Blight," which catches him by surprise. And then at one point, Rand sort of pulls Egwene to one side and he says, "Look, man, you guys don't have to go to the Blight. You're not the ones that are sort of being hunted down here. Why don't you just go to Tarvalon and go become an Aes Sedai or do whatever?" And she quickly pivots from that to like, no, we're going to the Blight. Who's Elaine?
Yeah.
And
will not let it go.
No, and then he answers with, well, she's the daughter heir of Andor. Egwene just suddenly gets mad, and she's like, she storms off. He's like, if you can't be serious, then I'm not going to talk to you. And he's like, left standing, going, what? And then so like throughout the evening, Basil Gill's also checking in with them. They're all doing their planning and stuff, and Moraine eventually gives Basil a list of supplies that they need. Basil also gives him little bits of news, and one of the bits of news was that someone tried to scroll a dragon's fang on the Queen's Blessing, and Lamgwin dealt with him.
Yeah, tried, operative word.
Yes. Then everyone goes to bed. Okay, so after lots and lots of planning, everyone goes to bed, but they, I think they go like have a bath or something like that for the first time in ages. Matt even like takes off his clothes before going to bed, and it all seems like, okay, cool. Everyone's got a plan. We're sort of in the safe inn for now. We know what we're going to do. Danger is yet to come. But then as soon as they fall asleep, Rand is like, oh shit, here I am in this dream, in front of the splintered wooden door. And he opens it up. Before he opens it up, he actually seeks out the flame in the void. And then he opens the door and he walks inside to that familiar room with all the weird geometry and the one that Belsmon has sort of appeared in to him before. But this time on the table in the middle of the room, there are these 3 figurines, one with a sword, one with a tiny dagger with a ruby on the hilt, and one with a wolf next to it. But they don't have any faces, and I think they're described as sort of like if someone that works with clay sort of like half finished these figurines, and they haven't really done them yet. And when Rand turns around from the table, Baalzamon is there. I sort of get like annoyed with these dream chapters because, okay, cool, we get it. Baalzamon is, Ishmael is tormenting them in their dreams and sort of telling them that they will kneel Rand just denies him, like, I deny you, because Moiraine told them, just keep denying him in your dreams, thinking that it's going to work. And Belzemon just sort of laughs and he goes, haha, you've always tried to deny me, but you always end up kneeling. Obviously full of shit. Because if the dragon knelt to him every time, why are they still in this battle, right?
Yep.
So just cool your jets, Ishmael. Just get over yourself. And he does mention Belzemon. He's doing a lot of bragging and stuff, and he talks about the fact that he set in motion the work of the Black Arja 2,000 years ago. So the Black Arja has been in operation for 2,000 years. I mean, it's not a new thing, it's not just these young girls in the tower that have been convinced to follow the Dark One. Like, it's been systematically growing and establishing itself for the longest of times.
Technically speaking, the Forsaken are the first Black Arja. They were all Aes Sedai, and they all served the Dark One. So
True.
The founding fathers, so to speak.
Yes. So, while he's sort of coming at Rand with all this like bragging and bravado, Rand sort of like throws up his arms and he's backing away from him, and he bumps into the table. And something stabs his hand, and he looks down, and I think it's the little figurine with the sword, or they don't even say necessarily, but his hand is bleeding. And he sort of comes out of his dream sort of like thrashing and freaking out about his hand and everything. And he can see Matt also thrashing in his sleep. And when Matt wakes up, he says, he knows my face. Matt says that in his dream, he walked up to the table and he picked up the figurine with the dagger. And then he heard Belzemon say, oh, so that's who you are. And then he looked down at the figurine again, and it had his face. And he even says, like, it felt like flesh. Like the figurine felt like flesh. He could feel his own hand on himself.
Oh, gross. Some voodoo shit going on there.
So upsetting. Yes. Creepy as hell. And then Rand still feels the pain in his hand, and he goes over to like the wash basin to light a lamp to see it. And there in his hand is like a big dark splinter where the sword stabbed him in the dream. And he freaks out. So because then he has a physical thing from the dream sort of in his hand, and he desperately sort of like rips it out of his hand. And as he pulls it out of his hand and he drops it, it actually disappears. Now, I don't know how often in the books we read about something from the world of dreams manifesting in the real world and then also phasing out of reality again.
Well, maybe it's part of your body. If your body was in the dream world and you're out of the dream world, as long as it's not attached to you or in you.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember specifically that it doesn't happen, because there's a lot of shit fuckery with the dream world later in the books, with Egwene being a like experienced dreamwalker and Perrin going in and out in physical form. There's all kinds of weirdness around it, but I certainly can't remember anything specific. But anyway, so he's got a wound in his hand now. Like, like last time when he pricked his hand on the thorn, it didn't have such a physical impact on him, but the hold of the Dark One on them his ability to influence them is becoming stronger and stronger. I think Moiraine also explains that in the previous chapter, that every time he reaches out to you, he gets better and better at it. So that's why you need to keep denying him. But then as Rand's looking at his hand, Moiraine enters the room to sort of wake them up. But they're already awake, so she's like, all right, cool, you're good, you're awake, let's go. And they're like, what? We've hardly slept. She goes, you slept for 4 hours. Like, oh, shit. And then she sees that they're both freaked out. She goes, what is it, the dreams? And they both go, yeah. And Rand holds up his hand and he says, I've got this wound. And she comes over and she sort of rubs her thumb over him, does a bit of healing, and the wound goes away. He feels the chill and all that stuff. But she says, okay, cool, get your stuff. We got to get out of here before the sun comes up. Yeah, she says that they have to leave because time grows short, and Rand realizes she's not talking about the time of day. She's talking about the overall battle against the shadow. Time grows short. We need to get to the eye of the world. And that's where the chapter ends.
So abruptly.
Just like that sentence.
Yeah. Okay. I was really into your story there, and then you just stopped. I was like, zoning out.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those ones where, okay, cool, they made some plans. Egwene got mad at Rand again, and they had a dream with Belzemon in it again. Yeah. Cool, standard fare at this point. Nothing shocking.
Look, for a first-time reader, these dreams must be interesting. Ooh, another dream. But, we're on the third reread. some of us. Jesus, that's enough with the dreams. I get it, but
Look, I'll be honest. I mean, I remember sort of being like not that interested in that stuff as well. Like nothing um, immediate happens
Yeah.
from those dreams. There's no immediate impact. And I mean, the first time you read about the thorn pricking him in that maze, and then him having blood or something on his hand, or still feeling the pain when he woke up, that was sort of interesting. You're like, oh, cool, whoa, weird. Something from his dream is manifesting in real life. Weird fantasy story. So magic's happening. Cool, not a big surprise. And now, like you said, on like multiple rereads, you're like, okay, especially because you also know it's not the Dark One that's talking to him. It's just, one of the Forsaken that's sort of playing at being the Dark One.
Can we, talking about Forsaken, can we just jump ahead to what happens down in book 8, 9, and 10? Because
of course.
Yeah, I was just like,
what are we doing here?
Some things, remembering some things, and then reading some comments on like posts on Facebook and Instagram, and I've got following all these accounts now. And
yes,
you at this point you're like, you don't know it's Forsaken. You think it's the Dark One if you're a first time reader. And
yes.
then there's all these things about the show and who's going to be cast as Lanfear and Moghedian and Semirag and all of these people, and you're like, oh yeah, remember all these badass guys. But they are not that badass. Rand and Matt and Egwene, they kill these guys. I mean, in this book, they did, like in book 1, 2, taken out and regularly kill or capture them. At one point, Egwene has Moghedian captured and chained, or on a leash, on a leash, Sean-Chan leash. Forcing her to teach her weaves and stuff. Like, whoa, so
yeah.
We get this impression at the beginning that they're these, they're trying to, influence everybody. We are this threat. But later on, it's like, we'll just kill you. No worries.
But that's part of their modus operandi, right? Is to strike fear in the hearts of their enemies. Like they make themselves, these are personas that they have built up very purposefully.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reputations of the type, I mean, who are the two that I keep forgetting at the Eye of the World? Agenor, and it's either Belthamel or Belal. Belthamel. I mean, one of them, I think, is credited with creating the Trollocs or something.
Yeah.
One of them invented Trollocs and Fades. So these are people that experimented on, casting magic on people when dying and using human sacrifices. So like their reputations are earned through extreme cruelty, but not necessarily through like fighting prowess or like badassery, like, when, facing down against another channeler. There's very few of the Forsaken that are really good. Moghedian's thing is also that she is like the master of the world of dreams. For a long time, she went completely unchallenged in the world of dreams, which is a cool trick.
Yeah, I suppose they all got their different strengths and weaknesses. I remember Samael being like the military guy. He was the general, right? He was a tough guy to fight.
Honestly, I'd forgotten that Samael existed.
Yeah, he's there too.
That's one of the names. Yeah. Lanfear uses her looks to just always seduce the dragon.
Her superpower is hotness.
Yes. But I think it's actually quite a common held opinion that the introduction and the destruction of 2 of the Forsaken at the end of the first book sort of cheapens their
power, their value.
Their power and their value, yeah.
Oh, damn, I got to resurrect these bloody bastards again.
Yeah, and also that only happens a bit later, where you learn about the fact that the Forsaken that get killed just get resurrected again, and you're like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah, maybe that's why they don't put too much effort into protecting themselves. They could fight a bit harder. Fuck it, I'll just come back later on and sort this guy out.
I do like a couple of them as characters, like Lanfear. Obviously, you'd read about quite a bit. She's quite cool, but only because she seems to also give the dragon some kind of leniency because she believes that he's going to come over. I like Ishmael because of his arrogance and his intense rivalry with Lews Therin. Like I love the fact that that he is so predictable in that sense. But very, very few of the other Forsaken stand out to me. Semirag only shows up way later, and her whole thing is just that she likes torturing people and is especially cruel. Okay, cool.
But she's badass as well.
I think Missana is in the White Tower, isn't she?
You're asking the wrong person.
Hmm.
In the comments section below, or send us an email.
Yeah, here's some Twitter and Facebook interaction fodder for you guys.
We have no idea.
Clearly. Okay, so yeah, dreams, got it. Let's
Yeah.
get to the action.
All right.
So the next chapter, Vili, is chapter 44, The Dark Along the Ways.
All
Ooh.
right. Back on the horses. Literally.
Literally.
Well,
Even loyal.
they basically
Loyal.
get
Sorry. Loyal.
Loyal. So the gang is all together, plus one, and Master Gil has sorted them out, got them some horses, got a horse big enough for Loyal to fit onto. He
Thank you
was
very much.
obviously keen with that. He's sort of, nah, my feet can carry me. But you don't argue with the Aes Sedai. Moraine gave him one
No.
look and he's like, yep, he'll settle up. They got some wicker baskets on some pack horses and obviously concerned about the whites out front hanging around, waiting and watching the inn. To their surprise, Master Gil has got a little latch to the back panel of the stable that opens into a different alleyway. Sort of another little ace up his sleeve over there.
This
So
guy has
they,
a history. He's pretty good at smuggling people and horses in and out of his inn.
he hangs out with Tom. Come on.
Yeah.
In my notes for this chapter, I refer to him as Trixie Basil.
Trixie Basil. Yeah, Trixie Basil does it again. Moraine then sort of says to him, "Oh, look, if they do come and they burn your inn down, which I probably will or might, just write this lady there in the tower a letter and we'll sort you out." He's like, "Nah."
Ooh, she says Shiriam, right?
Shiriam, yes.
Who is, I don't know if you know this, Vili. She's black. Black Aja.
Oh, really? Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Plot
I didn't
thickens.
remember that. I remember the name, but I didn't remember
Yeah,
that.
she's the mistress of novices.
Shiriam
Ah,
Sedai, yeah.
Yeah.
Of the Blue Aja at the time.
Well, she doesn't advertise that she's black.
No.
Yeah. It's kind of the thing they keep secret.
It's in the rules.
But,
Rule number 1, don't talk about the Black Aja. Moving on.
Yeah, so Master Gil laughed. He's like, I don't know, he's going to make enough coin that there's no rats in his inn at the moment. So life's good, carry on. And with that, Moraine tells Loyal, it's now time to be our hound, find the Waygate. And he sets off and everyone leaves and follows him down the alley. A little bit of tension here. It's before the sun comes up. Streets are still quiet, but people are starting to wake. And obviously, they're an odd bunch of people together now. They don't want to be seen, sort of a little bit of anxiety around getting around the corners. And Loyal doesn't have any sort of a preference to finding a route that looks good to hide in. He just follows his nose with this one, literally. Bad little alleyways, big open roads, doesn't matter. And they eventually get in front of a building, and he's like, it's underneath this building. And then Moraine sort of, oh, there must obviously be a cellar door or something. They go down a little side alley, and there's just Bob's cellar door with a big lock on. She does a little bit of channeling there to get the lock open to save a noise, and they go down into what's actually quite a big archway cellar. And she channels a little ball of light for them to be able to see what's happening around and finds the Waygate. And everyone's sort of kind of surprised at this, like, why would they be putting this stuff under the building? It's like, no, it's been here for a very long time. The building came and grew up on it, as opposed to it being the other way around. But they eventually go. She finds the leaf of Avendosar and
That's the one.
Avendosora.
That's exactly how you say it, Billy.
Yeah.
And it opens up the Waygate, and Lan goes through first and ran second. But it's sort of, the horse sort of walked in but came out running. Like all of a sudden, there's that time warp that happens. It's almost like they're entering a black hole. It's a massive spaghettification, sort of slingshots through, and everyone almost falls off their horses with the surprise of it. Obviously, never Moraine. But they get in and they realize that what absolute blackness they are in. Like, they all have a little pommel with a lantern that they sort of got ready then. and it's just this little bubble of light around them. And even the further someone would walk, you wouldn't see the other person. The light would disappear. And eventually, everyone's in. Moraine closes the way gate, and they say, "Okay, cool. We're gonna head off now. Loyal, lead the way." And this is when they notice there's actually a white line or a white guide on the floor, and they kind of now, whoa, sort of everything is pitted, it's weathered, it's dark,
Yeah.
it's damp, it sounds pretty gruesome to be in there. It sounds just filthy. And he leads the way, and they just seemingly huddle closer and closer together the whole time. And this is pretty much leading from guiding to guiding. Kind of, you get on a bridge and you land on a floating island is the only way that I can imagine it, in an eternity of darkness. And luckily, obviously, Loel's there. He can read the old tongue and sort of say Ogier tongue, and follow through the next one to the next one to the next one, take a break, eat something, a little bit of conversation in between, but everyone's pretty tense. Everyone that whole time is kind of Rand finds his hand on his sword the whole time. Perrin's riding with an axe across his pommel. Matt's got an arrow knocked and just ready to fire at anything. It's
They are riding their horses through a fucking nightmare.
literally.
Yes.
And eating in the saddle type of thing. Like, there's no time to waste here. We just got to keep on moving. That's it. And they just basically go from one to the other until that end of the chapter.
No, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That was it.
Never to be seen again.
They followed the one way where Lowell from the guiding pointed them in the direction, and they got onto the middle of sort of the bridge between the guidings, and the bridge was broken. They sort of left hanging in the air, literally.
Yeah.
And everyone felt even more scared.
That's the first time Rand can see the thickness of the bridge, and he says it's only a span, and then there's nothing underneath it, and suddenly the bridge he's standing on feels paper thin.
That's it. It's like the white bridge.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. We talked about measurements before. What a horde of Trollocs is, or a host, or what was it?
A fist.
A fist. Too much heroes.
Yes.
A span, is that a meter? Less, around a meter, like a yard? Or is it a foot?
I honestly don't know. I have always imagined it to be like a meter. Yes. I don't know where I get that
I
from.
will go with a meter.
It's certainly not the metric system.
The span between your arms.
Your arm, a wingspan. Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, it sounds valid. That's canon now.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Unless someone refutes it in the comments or emails us.
Did you guys notice that Rand says the place seemed vaguely familiar to him? Cast your minds back to that dream that Rand had where he poked himself on the thorn bush, but before that, he was on a platform with a balustrade, and Baalzamon is striding along these railingless ramps.
Yeah,
it is the ways.
Yes, so it wasn't the
ways.
ways.
Said at that time, it sounds like the dream version of the ways is lighter. Like it was a different version of the ways where you can actually see in the distance. And that's, they actually say in here when they go in Rand, he mentions the balustrade around the island and the bridges, and that some of the ramps don't have a railing. And they describe that, and then they say it seems somewhat familiar to Rand, but he can't place it. It's from that dream.
I did not remember that. All right. That makes
another point
sense.
for Mo.
Oh, another point for a dream there as well.
Yeah. What else? Trixie Basil. And the ramps with no railing. The white lines, I think I understand this. The white line those are only between a way gate and the first guiding after that way gate.
Yeah, that's a way out. Follow that line to a gate.
Yeah, it's the way's equivalent of an exit sign.
Exactly.
An illuminated exit sign in a movie theater. Rand also at some point, or was it Land? Someone talks about what's on the other side of the waygate after they've just walked in, because it's sort of like this doorway just standing in the middle of nothing. And Loyal says you could walk around it, but as soon as you walk around to the other side of it, you don't see anything, and you will never find your way back.
So don't do that.
Yeah. So maybe don't. And it's
Trippy
like
stuff.
it's pretty sad. Like I also get the sense that or Rand at least he gets the sense that those guidings, so those big rocks with the directions and the arrows pointing to whatever bridge you should be finding for your
Mm.
ultimate destination. Those little islands are like a small hill, so they are slightly rounded. And in one of the previous chapters, I think Loyal describes that they were like they had thick, lush grass growing on them
Yeah,
and
to
fruit
spend the
trees
night
and
in
stuff. So
fruit
you can
tree.
Yeah, that's
you
in
can
my
actually
chapter, the next one.
sleep there. Oh,
Mm.
okay.
Yeah.
And
Jesus
now
Christ,
they are
it's
just
stealing my shit.
complete ruin. Yeah, sorry, spoilers
Yeah.
for next chapter.
Yeah, like it's the whole guiding system and the road signs and everything is for the listeners as well, the benefit of it, having those white lines, and then on every island you've got this monolith kind of a thing, stone with engravings in it telling you where to go. Like
It's a metal inlaid script. So it's
yeah,
like there's an actual metallic component to it as well, which actually saves their bacon later when they find the broken one.
yes, it does indeed.
But I just love the ways. I think it is
Yeah,
such a cool thing. And to quickly date our podcast again, I hope they put them in the show. I hope
yeah,
it's something that they don't decide is too. I mean, it solves a pretty big problem because Fal Dara is some ways beyond Tarvalon when they're in Camelin and planning to go there, right? So, like, Moraine opts for the ways, not just because it takes them, close to where they need to be, but it actually speeds them up a significant amount. I mean,
yes,
they sleep one night in the ways, right?
Mm.
And then they come out in Fal Dara.
because they sleep at night in your chapter, Billy?
No, they haven't slept in my day. They just
Yeah.
stopped to get food and keep moving.
Because Fal
Just
Dara,
on
if
that,
you look at them,
sorry, on that question about the time scale of the ways,
Mhm.
it's it goes a lot faster in there.
Yeah, I also tried to maths my way through it, to no avail. I've sort of just resigned
You just
myself to
travel
the hand,
a lot faster in time in the real world. But
something like that. I've
something,
resigned myself to the hand wavy sort of time is weird.
yeah,
Cool,
1
got
to
it.
5, just a 1 to 5 ratio. 1 day away,
Yes.
5 days of travel on a horse, running at full pace.
I tried to do that and my brain broke. So I'm just like, okay, time is weird. And I think they even say that like they don't specify really
It's
what
fantasy
the
math.
difference is.
Like, come on.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
No.
Let's just call it a black hole. Gravity has taken time away.
But I love the ways. Like it's just it's such a cool concept, and
Yes.
what has become of them is cool, and they are terrifying. Maybe it's my latent fear of the dark from when I was 3 years old. But Rand describes, I think he says, like when you bring in more light, the darkness seems more oppressive, like it's trying harder even to extinguish that light.
Mm.
And the fact that Machin Shin is in there somewhere,
Oh,
and
it's coming.
it's not a physical thing that you can defend against,
Mm.
and the vastness of the waves are pitch black, so you can't see anything coming. It is just this awesome horror element that I really, really hope, like I said, is put in the show. Okay, so then next chapter 45, what follows in the shadow? Go for it, Jody.
I know exactly what follows. Machin Shin.
I'm scared.
and his little buddy.
Man, when I was doing my notes for this chapter, I was reading it and writing my notes. Like as I got towards the end of the chapter, I started losing my breath and I was writing faster and faster. You can see my handwriting deteriorating.
Amazing.
I had to leave, like stop and go get a beer and just chill out a bit. It just freaked me out. So
Amazing.
yeah, still heavily affected after all these years. So yeah, basically this is, and it does come up in podcasts from time to time, the similarities to the Lord of the Rings. So the Fellowship is in the mines of Moria at the moment. Darkness, bridges with no bottoms falling into chasms. Wait, one of them's broken? This is all very familiar. An ancient evil that none of them can fight.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be a shortcut, but it could cost them their lives. Like, wow, I could go on. So anyway,
The stone doorway.
the stone, dude. I told you. Let's carry on. We're going to be here all afternoon. So anyway, fly, you fools. Then there's a gap in the bridge that is too wide for them to cross. That's where we left off on the previous chapter.
Yes.
So they have to find another way. They have to double back. So anyway, they double back. This entire time, Loyal is telling them, like, listen, we could just go to Tarwin. It's right here, like half a day, two bridges away. And they're like, nope, Moraine's, no, we're not going. Get it out of your system. So they go back, they double back a bit to the previous island and choose a different route, and off they go. And they're traveling basically the whole day. If you can tell what a day is there or not. Time is funny. Can't. Whatever. It's a long time. They're tired by the end. They think it's so they stop for the, in quotation marks, night on one of these islands. And this is where they talk about, Loyal mentions how these islands used to be covered in thick grass that you could sleep on. And there were fruit trees all year round with sweet fruits and food. And it was just awesome. You know, you were saying like how the, this concept is just so awesome and how they're going to visualize it. Like, really, I love the ways as well. And I'm so bummed that they ruined. But anyway, it's terrible. They must have been awesome in their day. So yeah, at this point as well, this is another time that Perrin growls, "There's nothing to hunt," and he's kind of surprised that he said it. Like previously, when they were sitting in your previous chapter as well, it's good hunting in the Blight. Like, and he's always surprised that these things are. He's saying these things like what? Anyway, so he's becoming more and more the wolf, and we see that later on. Like, you got to be careful during this transition, otherwise you become a wolf and you lose your mind as your human mind. And they even find that guy in one of the villages that they've got locked in a cage, and he's gone total wolf. So this is starting to happen to him. So like I said earlier, like they've just solved the problem with Matt getting worse and worse and worse. Now we've got Perrin doing the same thing. And later it's Rand. So you know, nothing's ever easy. Nope. So they stop for the night, so to speak. They talk about they had nothing to hunt, but they do have some tea. They're allowed to have a little bit of tea. It's like so very British of Robert Jordan.
So proper.
Everything's going to be all right as long as we have a cup of tea. You know, no biscuits there. So everyone is huddling together in gloomy silence. It's really oppressive. And out of nowhere, Moraine pops up and she says, like, "Hey, I think Tom is alive." And this brings everybody's spirits back up. And she's like, yes, because she was in Whitebridge with Lan right after they were there, and Neve as well. And she was speaking to everybody, and not everybody remembered a Gleeman, but those that did mention him didn't mention that he died. And it's a small enough town that if a Gleeman had died, somebody would have said something. So she's pretty certain that he's still alive, and also he's part of the pattern now. If he's been intertwined with you boys for so long, that's it. His goose is cooked. He's with you now.
It is a nice little gift that Moraine gives them, and that Robert Jordan gives us. You know, like, oh, Tom's not dead. Okay, cool. You better not screw me on this, Robert.
Yeah, maybe they will in the TV show. Who knows? But they've cast him. Too late. So everyone's part of the pattern. No one's dead until the last book. And so Rand also asks at this point, like, you know, this information that you've got, did you get some of this from Min's viewings? And Egwene's like, who's Min? Again, and this is like a little ribbing.
You talk to her?
Who is this? Another girl? It's like, yeah, this is going to be my second wife. Haven't met my third one yet. And Perrin also chimes in at this point, going like, no, Min's nobody. Don't have to worry about him, Egwene. It wasn't anybody like Aram. And then Rand's like, hey, what? Who's Aram? And there's a little bit of ribbing going on, and they're joking around for the night. And that Matt is also like, oh, maybe we should tell Egwene about Elsie, about Farmer Grindel's daughter. And everybody's like, all right, it's time to go to bed, everybody. We're just going to shut up for the night. No more of this horny teenager talk. And then before they're all lying down, Rand's struggling to sleep, obviously. It's not a place you want to close your eyes and fall asleep.
No.
So he turns over and he looks, and Perrin's staring at him, and Matt's awake. Everybody's awake and just lying there. And then Moraine starts walking around from each of them and like leans in really close and whispers to them and tells them some calming words. And Rand's thinking like, does she think just telling us some calming words is going to calm us down? But hey, wait, I do actually feel calmer and more relaxed. Yes, so she's laying wards on them because that night they don't dream. So I think this is the first time we see that she goes around and lays a ward on their dreams to protect them. Before they learn to do it themselves. Of course, Perrin's got his own wards. He doesn't need her. But yeah, the next morning they have a little bit of tea in the morning, if you can call it a morning, and breakfast in the saddle again. Like Billy said, there's just no dallying here. Let's get a move on. And at this point as well, Lan mentions that someone or something is following them. And if they wanted to catch up, if this person or thing wanted to catch them, they would have done it already, because last night they actually made an effort to go back. They were almost on top of them when they stopped for the night, that this person doubled back and tried to stay out of sight for as long as possible. And when he mentions this, Matt just turns around and fires an arrow into the darkness. And Lan's like, listen, you village idiot. Just relax, you don't know who's behind us. Maybe it's someone good. He's like, who else could be in this place but a bunch of dark friends? Like, well, we're in this place, just for starters.
Yes.
So, just take it easy. Stop firing arrows into the darkness. And but he's right. I wish that arrow had found a home in you-know-who's face. And then, so at this point, they're traveling and they get to the next island, where they have to choose, and this is where the shit starts to get real. The guiding stone is full of scratches, and there's the broken off the top and smashed into pieces, and what's left of the rock and the stone has Trolloc runes engraved in it. And they realize, like, oh shit, this is how the Trollocs have been able to move around to get to Emansfield so quickly, to get to Camelin, to surround the city with armies and thousands of Trollocs, and nobody noticed. So they've learned to use the ways, but obviously they haven't figured out all of them. Otherwise, they would have been inside Camelin, coming through the same gate that they left through.
Yes.
So they do have some, and also then a couple of meters away, because they can't see this because darkness everywhere. As they move along, they find at least a dozen Trollocs that have died in horrific way, and like kind of melted into the stone of the bridges, and the stone has bubbled, and they've got these twisted faces, and like they died in horrific ways. Matt just pukes off the back of his horse. Everybody's
going to say, doesn't someone spew? It's that bad.
Someone spews. It's always isn't this the second or third time that Matt has spewed? Like, he doesn't have a very strong constitution. He's just constantly spewing.
He's the Jethro of the group.
Totally. Inside jokes. So anyway, this is horrible. Now this realization comes to them. Moraine is really calm about it, and Nynaeve is not happy that Moraine is so calm. She's like, listen, like, horrible stuff is happening. And she goes, what are we going to do? We're already in the ways. If something's going to kill us, it's going to kill us. And these Trollocs probably died because of the men who created this. Most probably set traps for Shadowspawn to not be able to cruise around in here all willy-nilly. So, but obviously we know that is not the case, and we know how these creatures died so horribly. So anyway, after they see this, they figure, listen, we better get a move on. Let us go. So the Trollocs have learned how to use these ways, but at a price, because I don't know how many Trollocs have died trying to get through the ways, and they may have sent 10,000 and only 1,000 come out on the other side. So the last signpost is shattered. Loyal finds enough information to find out how to get to Fal Dara. And their movement from then on is actually slower, because now Moraine is super careful, and they stop at every bridge and they peer ahead and they make sure and they listen before they start moving on, because now Trollocs are obviously a real threat that they know about now, at least. And this is something I thought we were talking about, visualizing the ways in the TV show. Like, I'm wondering how they will do the speech of the Ogier, because in this point, while Loyal is busy reading the runes or his language, he starts speaking out loud, and it's described as a deep rumbling of like birds singing, but in a deep Ogier voice, which I thought very musical. These giant people and this deep rumbling musical voice. I'd really like to hear that in reality. But anyway,
I don't remember noticing that description in previous reads. Like, this time, that really stood out to me. Like, it is not like spoken words at all.
Yeah, very alien.
Very, very different. Yes,
I like a bit of throat singing, maybe.
There you go, Mongolian throat singing. Oh, that's how you do it, apparently.
That's more Zoidberg, but anyway.
Anyway. Now I've got Zoidberg on the brain. What happened now? That afternoon, yes, it's afternoon now, apparently. Rand is they busy just plodding along, and Rand thinks that he hears wind behind him, and he even starts to think, "Oh, well, how nice it must be to be outside and have the breeze blowing." Hang on, wait a minute, Loyal, didn't you say that there's like we should be afraid of wind in this place? That there's this thing, and of course, Loyal stops. Everybody stops, and they listen, and Loyal's like, "It's Machin Shin. It's the Black Wind. This foe is beyond you. Get the fuck out of here ASAP." So everyone starts freaking out. This is like, we're made, boys and girls. No time to be cautious. And this is, you're gonna have to bear with me because this is where my handwriting deteriorates to scratches. The tension now is ratcheted up to 4,000, and the chase is on. It's like in a modern movie, I suppose this would be a car chase. So they have to start running, and they're running, and they can hear the wind behind them, and like the sound of voices in it, and we get to hear some of what the thing, but what these voices are saying is so horrific that people are blocking their ears, and they feel sick to their stomachs about what these voices are saying to them. So I don't want to go into detail, but anyway, horrible shit. And they rush, and they get eventually to the Waygate because they were almost there anyway, luckily. And when they get to there, the Aventusora leaf is missing. The key to open the door is not there. So another little stumble, another little, So they're there, but they can't open the door. But not to worry, Moraine has her flamethrower staff, whatever thing that is, and turns it on and starts cutting through the stone. And this, I'm going to pause now and relax the tension. Aren't these doors indestructible? Isn't that the whole point of them?
I also had a sort of like arcing of my eyebrow at that whole premise, because I also got the sense that these gates cannot be destroyed.
Yes.
And she just cut them open with
like on the
lightsaber?
first try with a lightsaber, with her lightsaber staff. Anyway, maybe
the gateway itself can't be destroyed,
but the portal,
and the stone isn't the gateway. The portal can't be destroyed, and the stone is just there to cover up the portal.
Well, there you go. More fantasy math for you. Anyway, yes.
Yeah,
so
because in my mind, sorry, Jody, was kind of that she cut a slither into the portal for them to escape through.
Yeah, she cut the doors, not the archway. I suppose the archway and then the shimmer, the event horizon is the kind of thing. The event horizon,
that's
yeah, but they're just covered with normal stone doors.
Who know, stone doors with magical engravings that can move as if the wind is blowing the leaves of a Vendosora around. Like, it's murky at best.
Don't think about it too hard, is what you're saying.
Hand wavy magic stuff. Yes.
There we go. Oh, there you go. All right. Problem solved. Thank you for clearing that up.
There's a lot of black soot.
Yes.
So
anyway, she's cutting through and there's black smoke coming out. I'm wondering if that's an effect of where they are, not just.
I think so.
Yeah, not
it's
just
the taint.
It's the taint.
Rand mentions that the flame doesn't look the same as it did when she was in Emansfield waving the staff in front of the villagers, and that there's this sort of like acrid smoke coming off it, and I think it's implied that it is because of where they are. Moraine says she didn't want to channel in there at all. Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. So anyway, she cuts through the door, very Star Warsy, the lightsaber through the door. But the stone is still in place. So Lan takes Mandab and charges it and turns the horse at the last minute, and the horse Mandab, shoulders the sliced parts of the door out and smashes through. This doorway always reminds me of Stargate. If any of you have watched Stargate, yeah, that kind of. Whenever I picture that shimmer over there, it's like totally the puddle. Anyway, so they go through, but it's kind of like a bubble. I think it. From the expression, the way it's written is like when you walk through it bulges around you until you kind of push through it, like there's some resistance, and your skin gets all chilled. But anyway, Lan is out on the other side first, and Moraine's got the staff out, turned around, and Machin Shin is right there, and it's tugging at their cloaks, and she's got the flame into it and screaming at everybody, "Get out, get out, get out!" And everybody's making a run for it, and all they have to kick the horses and jump through the gate. Sorry, throwing pens around. I'm freaking out here. So yeah, they bash through the doorway out into the open, and Moraine stays behind to cover their retreat with her staff, shooting out fire. And on the other end, they're in Fal Dara already. They're up in the Borderlands, and Lan is standing looking at the gateway, ready to jump back right in to save Moraine. But then she comes out, and when she comes out, she's exhausted. You can see the gate that's normally gray and shimmering turning black as Machin Shin presses up against it and it can't get out. So you see the color turning and the gateway turning black, and she has to throw away her staff because it's absolutely ruined and corrupted entirely. She just throws it on the ground and has to wipe her hands off. But yeah, out by the skin of their teeth. But for the moment, they are safe, and they are in Shinar. That's where Fal Dara is, eh? I always get the Borderlands mixed up. But they're in Shinar, and they can see Fal Dara in the distance. But yeah, out of the ways, finally, and ready to go. And that's where we leave them in this chapter. Everyone take a deep breath.
All right. Machin Shin.
Crack that beer.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Love a bit of Machin Shin. Love a bit of the ways.
When they fled Shadow Logoth, Moraine also sort of said, I can't do anything against this. It was at Mashadar there. Like, this is beyond me. Fly, you fools. Scatter in different directions. And over here, this is like all she focused on was just to get us out and to make it not come out. That was it. That makes me believe that its origin is still linked to the same thing of Mashadar's origin. That it's that very old power. And I went reading into what's the theories behind why it's stuck in the ways. Like one field of belief was that it was born of the ways, but another one was that it is one of these very old evil entities or very old dark power that used the ways and got stuck there, and now just tries to escape the whole time and try and get out. The same as Mashadar, that is trapped in Shadow Logoth. Now, Shadow Logoth, the city that it was before Aradol, would have had a way gate and would have had a steading, because it wasn't it also
a grove, not necessarily a steading
or grove. So
the steading would still have been there. They would have felt that Moraine can't channel if there was a steading, but there would have been a grove, which is just a lovely garden.
A lovely garden with a nice gate.
Yes.
But
to hell.
Kind of this. All of this kind of reminds me of Event Horizon, just the evilness that came out of it.
Look, I hadn't considered that there is any kind of link between Mashadar and Machin Shin, but that is a cool theory. That there are these evil forces that are not accounted for by the laws of the one power and the magic that have been described to us. It's one of those things I've mentioned in a couple of episodes now, like Mashadar, where it doesn't fit into the rule set that is presented to you as channeling and the magic of this world. Perrin's wolf ability doesn't fit. Min's viewings don't fit. And in these first couple of books, they introduce a lot of these sort of older magics and things that even the characters and the most educated characters in the story don't know or don't understand. So that is a cool theory that I also thought it was born of the ways, because I think that's how Moraine describes it, but she doesn't know everything. She hints at the fact that Perrin's wolf thing could be a thing of the dark one, so she's proven to be ignorant on one count already. Yeah. So that, I like that.
I love it that she's like, nah, I'm not even fighting Mashadar. Like, I'm not even fighting it. And the same with Machin Shin. Like, there's nothing. It's been so evil for so long, and it's been there for so long. If it was able for any of us to destroy it, it would have been destroyed, kind of thing.
I wonder if Rand, after Tarwin Gaidon, goes around cleansing the world of these fucking terrible evils. It's an opportunity for a sequel. Book 15. Let's go.
Yeah. Come on, Brando. Jeez, that guy's a prolific writer, eh? Just put it on your list of things to do, Sanderson.
Yeah, God, just do it on a weekend.
Yeah, smash it out.
I loved Perrin chiming in about Aram and shutting Egwene right up. Yeah. And then grinning like Matt, and like he nudges Rand, like he sort of like elbows him in the ribs and like, hey, I got you, buddy. Don't worry about it. And he actually smiles. It's this nice moment of levity.
In this dark, hellish environment. Yeah.
Hellscape.
Yeah.
What else did I have in here? Someone says when they're talking about the Trollocs moving through the ways, I think Moraine or someone says there's at least one waygate in the Blight, and she glances at Lan, and it must be the waygate in Malkier.
Must be.
So the Trollocs have found the waygate in Malkier, which has been overrun by the Blight, and can use that to enter, because none of the Ogier or Aes Sedai of the time would have grown a waygate anywhere in the Blight or near Sha'al Ghul or the Blasted Lands or anything. So because the Blight has taken Malkier, it's actually given them an entry into this web of transport into any of the countries around Randland.
Damn it. And that was all Isom and his mother's fault. We learn about that later on. Whose chapter? These chapters coming up?
In one of the next 2 chapters, yeah.
No. Okay, well, we'll leave it for then.
Yeah, but it's a consequence that I hadn't considered of a consequence of losing Malkier to the Blight. I always just thought it's this cool story to give Lan a background and everything, but it serves a logistical purpose in the machinations of the Shadowspawn. Now that they have a waygate, they've got a way in, which is cool. Well, for us, not for the gang.
Not so much for everyone else living around there.
No.
All right.
A lot of action in that one.
Heaps of action. It's did you read any of that text, Joe? What Machin Shin says in the voices that they heard?
I did, but I couldn't find it again on my second reread. I was going very quickly though,
I've got it. Yeah, quick note of it.
Yes, regale at Sveli.
Flesh so fine to tear, to gash the skin the strip, to plate, so nice to plate the strips, so nice, so red the drops that fall, blood so red, so sweet, sweet screams, sweet pretty screams,
Shut up, bro.
singing screams your song, sing your screams.
Jesus.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Billy. I had forgotten that, but
yeah, real charmer, Machin Shin.
Those sweet screams.
Yeah.
Plaiting skin. It's so sweet the red drops. I mean, that is vile. So, should we move on from that?
Please, God, yes.
Dreadful topic. Okay, I think it's me next. Chapter 46 is Fal Dara. Yay, destination. Love our destination chapters. Camelin,
destination fucked.
Sad but true. Okay, so my first note for this chapter is map.
Yeah, there is a map. Yay!
There's a map, but it doesn't tell you an awful lot except to sort of explain how Shinar is sort of tucked up in the northeastern corner of the map. They sort of show you in relation to Fal Dara where Tarwin's Gap is, and then Malkier, like it's got a little blip on the map inside the Blight of the Seven Towers, and then the other Borderlands, because Lord Agelmar sort of references Kandor and what are the other Borderlands? Like I also
yeah, I can tell you're asking the wrong guy.
Seldea, Kandor, Arafel.
There you go.
Anyway, so there's a map. Doesn't tell you an awful lot, but it shows you. It's also a weird orientation. Like north is like pointing at our northeast. It's like it's a weird way to orient the map. I don't know why they did it that way, but oh well.
Didn't fit on the page otherwise.
Maybe not. I think they wanted Tarvalon and Fal Dara and Tarwin's Gap and some of the Borderlands, and then the Blight and the Blasted Lands in there. But so okay, they've exited the gate and there's no grove. Loyal is bummed. Sorry, Loyal is bummed. There's no grove, and they're sort of looking around, and Rand even notices that there's even less evergreen trees than he would have thought. A lot of the trees that are around are sort of grey and dead looking. Some of them are like split wide open. And Lan explains that during the winter months here, it gets so cold that the sap inside the trees freeze and they burst the trees open. And some nights you can hear them like fireworks going off
Yeah.
in the distance. But he says, yeah, if you want warm weather, don't worry, it'll be warm in the blight.
Hmm.
And everyone's just like rolling their eyes, like, oh God, thanks for reminding us. That's where we're going. And on the way, they can sort of see Fal Dara's towers in the distance. And while they're riding, they sort of notice that the farms are abandoned. Like there's no one around. It looks like a lot of the places have been abandoned in a hurry. Nynaeve and Egwene sort of, someone mentions that, it couldn't have been very long ago that they left, and Perrin goes, well, how do you know that? And they sort of look at him like he's an idiot, and they're like, the curtains in the windows, those are not winter curtains. Those are
Don't
those
you
curtains
know?
are too light for the winter. No self-respecting housewife would have those up in the winter, so it would have been recent. And Perrin's like, he starts laughing, and they look at him like, he's like, oh no, look, I mean, I can see that scythe in the field is also not rusted enough, for it to be to have been out there very long. And Rand thinks, whoa. I used to have sharper eyes than Perrin when we went hunting rabbits, and I can barely make out the scythe, let alone tell whether it has rust on it or not.
And how old that rust is.
Yes. Perrin using both his blacksmithing and wolf skills in conjunction to make a valid point about how recently people had left. So while they're riding, Rand again tries to convince the girls and Loyal that they don't need to go into the blight, but Loyal says, Rand's fate, or their fate, chooses everyone else's. They're Taverin, so that's where they're going to go. And that he's excited to meet the Green Man, who you can only meet once. While they're traveling, Nynaeve sort of explains why they're going and refers to the boys as men. She corrects herself, like she says, like you boys, and then corrects herself and calls them men, which is also telling. And out of the blue, Egwene just sort of mentions that she only danced with Aram. Like, you wouldn't be mad at me for dancing with someone that I wouldn't ever see again, right?
Yeah.
And that just sort of triggers a memory in Rand, that Min said that he and Egwene are not meant for each other. So the seeds have already been sown for those two to drift apart. Like Rand's already scoping out other girls, and Egwene's already dancing with other boys, and they're sort of hanging on to this idea that the two of them are somehow meant to be together. But they're both slowly but surely sort of drifting away from that. And then they finally reach Fal Dara, and it's an obvious fort city. Despite it being a lot smaller than Caemlyn, the walls are just as high. And I mean, I think we remember like Caemlyn was like 50 feet tall walls around it, but not built for, beauty or anything like that. Pure function.
Yes.
And it has a mile of land around those walls cleared. So nothing can approach Fal Dara without the people in the watchtowers being able to see it. Land tells them to take off their hoods, and because no one's allowed to do that in the Borderlands. And Matt cracks a joke about like, why? Because everyone's so good looking, they need to like show it off. And Land goes, no, because half men can't hide their faces if they don't have a hood up.
That's a genuine common problem up here in the north.
Yes, we have half men trying to pass as citizens, so like
On a
no
daily
hoods,
basis.
everybody. That shuts Matt right up. And as they sort of come to the gates where there's a bunch of guards, and the guards all of them have a sword on their back, and either a mace or an axe or another broadsword at their waist, like they are armed to the teeth. There's like a whole bunch of them at the gate. It's not like one guy. The horses are right there with lances prepared. The horses have spiked armor on, like they could jump on those horses at any second and fuck shit up. So the guys are getting a real sense of like the area that they are entering into.
Which is this is Shinar the one where they have the two swords on their backs? Or is that Saldea? Because there's one in the Borderlands where everybody
where they have two swords,
have two broadswords on their backs.
Can't remember. I don't remember reading anything about two. It could be. Wasn't the one guy in A New Spring, the guy with the thin braids? It was Kandori or something, and he had two swords on his back.
Oh, maybe it's the Kandorians. Anyway,
Who
continue. Sorry for interrupting.
We'll find out soon enough.
I suppose we will.
Or sooner or later. And if we don't, we'll go back and read New Spring just to make sure that we cover that ground. And as they're sort of moving into the city, and even from the first guards at the gate, people are just letting Lan and Moraine in, and it's noteworthy to Rand. And people are calling out things like, you know, all hail, Daishan, welcome back. Are you raising the golden crane? And he's just sort of playing it down and just saying, peace, Reagan. Is one guy comes up and talks to them about it, and everyone's sort of taken aback by how easily they can just waltz into the city, but understanding that Lan is obviously well known here. And Loyal also gets a bunch of greetings, like a lot of people sort of paying homage to the builders. What did they say? Not glory to the builders, but they make a big deal about seeing an Ogier, and it's such a pleasant surprise for Loyal, who's just come from Cameron, where he was chased down the street being called a Trolloc.
I think these guys know what a Trolloc looks like. And
Yes,
Loyal is
they're not
not
mistaking.
one of those. Yeah.
No, they're not mistaking this giant bookworm for a Trolloc. And everyone notices that the city is packed to the rafters. So obviously all these people that have been coming off the farms have evacuated the farms and have moved into the fort or into the city. And you start to get the sense of like, okay, they are kind of, on high alert here. They've taken steps to protect the people from the surrounding lands. And so more shouts of Daishan and Golden Crane as they get closer to the center of the city, which has a fort inside with a dry moat full of spikes around it. And they don't have to say anything; they just sort of ride up to it, and they lower the drawbridge across the moat, and they open the portcullis. And as they come in across it, they come into this courtyard that's full of soldiers, and like blacksmiths are busy, fixing weapons and armor, and fletchers are making arrows. And okay, so they've pulled all the people from the countryside into the city, and they're preparing for some kind of battle. And that's when a soldier comes up to them, who we later find out is Ingtar, a short, sort of stocky, dark-skinned guy with a top knot. So like all these warriors have shaven heads except for a top knot. And he says that word has already reached Lord Agelmar that they're there, and he's waiting for them in his study. And they start following Ingtar through the fort to Lord Agelmar's study. And Lan asks him, or first Ingtar asks him, "Are you going to raise the banner of the Golden Crane?" And he's like, "No, just plays it down." And he goes, "Are things really as bad as they look?" And Ingtar sort of plays that down and says, we've driven them back at Tarwin's Gap before. We'll do it again. But he sort of has a moment of looking somewhat concerned, but again just plays it down. And eventually they get to Lord Agelmar's study, and it is this really austere room, right? Like no lavish furnishings or anything. It's got arrow slits, like it's a room that he can defend, and he's got his full set of armor ready to basically step into. He's got a rack of weapons on the wall, one of which is a broadsword taller than a man. So it's like he's got some firepower with him. Just speaking again to the warrior nature of obviously these Borderlanders, and he himself, Lord Agelmar, also has a top knot, but it's all white. Like he's an older gentleman with a couple of lines on his face, but obviously very, very glad to see Lan and Moraine, and immediately asks if they'll be joining them at Tarwin's Gap. And when they say no, he's surprised. And so he explains that, look, there is a force amassing at Tarwin's Gap that he has asked the other Borderlands to help repel. But despite none of the other Borderlands reporting a congregation of Trollocs or Fades or any Shadowspawn on their own borders, they are reluctant to send anyone. So Shinar will be taking on the responsibility of driving back the Shadowspawn at Tarwin's Gap themselves. And he says that because of that, they will be outnumbered 10-1 at least. Does not bode well.
Yeah, I think it's at this point as well, like Engelmar's, he's trying to convince them a few times.
He's constantly trying to convince them.
Come and help us out. Don't.
Yeah, guys, please.
On that, why is there no Aes Sedai if this battle against the Dark is so important? Sort of send a crow, send a Aes Sedai. All right, we're going to come and help. We'll go do a few weaves there with you guys and just...
Yeah, where my greens at?
Yeah, exactly.
Battle Aja, pull in. But I think it who knows? Maybe they've sent word to the tower, and the tower with their dwindled numbers maybe can't, risk anything. Shinar has always held Tarwin's Gap. It hasn't fallen before. What's so different about this one?
The blackout just got control.
Maybe, look, it might not carry a lot of weight here, but you do find out in the next book that Ingtar is a dark friend. Keep that in mind when you have when you read anything about him. I think he is one of, I think there's only two characters in the entire series who come back from the dark and convert back to the light, and Ingtar is one of them. But anyway, so as Lord Agelmar is trying to convince Lan and Moraine to join them at Tarwin's Gap, they're sort of sitting and drinking a goblet of wine, and Rand notices that wine's sploshing over Lan's hand, and he's crushed a silver goblet.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have superpowers, but he's crushed a silver goblet. The wine is sloshed out over his hand. A servant has come and replaced it, and it doesn't seem like Lan has noticed.
Yeah, nobody else is batting an eyelid either, I suppose. Oh, Lan's crushed another goblet. Typical Lan.
He's a true king.
Yeah.
And then Moraine sort of, she explains that they need to go into the Blight and they need to go find the Eye of the World. And Agelmar is just perplexed by their mission and the strange company that she's keeping. Who are these village idiots that she is taking to the Eye of the World when they have this massive battle they need to fight? They know that there's a threat there. They know there's danger. Come help us. Don't do this stupid, silly thing. But in that conversation, Moraine makes it clear that these boys need to be there, and Rand has a recollection of some other conversation, or maybe even earlier in this conversation, about the battle at the Eye of the World will require the one power of some kind. And it isn't said explicitly, but my read on that is that Rand is sort of clicking like, okay, if the three boys need to be there, and this is going to be a battle of the one power, is the implication there then that one of us can channel? Because, Rand doesn't know that he can channel. He doesn't know that he blew up the inn, Samuel Hakes Inn.
Yeah.
So he's sort of like starting to, process the stuff and putting two and two together and starting to come up with an idea of why they might need to be there.
But doesn't Agelmar as well also mention that? He's like, really? And he looks at the boys, like he steps back. He gets all defensive, like, because he...
In the next chapter.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
He grasps for his sword that isn't there. Right. But then Moraine also mentions that she has actually met the Green Man, but she's relying on the need to see him overcoming that sort of rule that I'm sure, or I assume, the Green Man has imposed himself, that he only meets with people once.
Yeah.
So, then there can be no greater need than the one that they have, right? So eventually Agelmar sort of lets it go and he starts a more pleasant conversation. They smoke some Two Rivers tobacco, like Agelmar is a good host, and he's sort of like, easing the tension, and he coaxes some conversation out of them, and it comes out that they're from the Two Rivers, and he sends off a servant and they bring this Two Rivers tobacco. But I find it funny, like, they don't offer any to the boys. No. Like, the Two Rivers tobacco is only for Lan, Agelmar, and Loyal. No. So they're sitting there and having a chat still, and then while they're chatting, they talk about the groves, and Lan also quotes some poetry, and Agelmar also confirms, like, yes, that poem also always had that meaning for me, and it was this cool sort of like warrior poet moment where Lan has been described as this, absolute, killing machine who just crushed a silver goblet, and now he's quoting poetry about rose petals floating on the water and sort of thing, which was a cool sort of Mushashi style warrior poet moment. Also just drawing more similarities with, the samurai and that whole culture.
Yeah, he's multi-layered.
Yes, like an onion. I wonder if Shrek got that. They say he's like an onion. I wonder if Shrek poached that line. And Rand is just really surprised by that. But while they're busy talking and making small talk, Ingtar comes in and he says, look, Lord Agelmar, you said that you needed us to let you know about anything odd. We had this Lugarder, by the sound of his accent, trying to come into the city before, but when he was turned away, They found him later that evening trying to actually scale the walls of Fal Dara. I mean, what the
Yeah.
fuck is he thinking? Do you want to see him? And Agelmar goes, look, sorry about this, everyone, but this is kind of important. Yes, do bring him here immediately. And so Ingtar goes away. And Agelmar says, look, you guys don't have to be here for this. But they say, look, don't worry, we'll stay here. This is a weird occurrence. We'll stick around. So when this person is pulled into the room, it's obvious that they are just, grotesquely filthy, dirty, like a vile human being. And Matt is the first one that recognizes him as Padan Fain. He goes, "Oh my God, it's the peddler!"
Mm.
And at that moment, Rand also goes, "That's the beggar from Camelin that was chasing
all
him."
the pieces of the puzzle fall down into place,
Which was incredibly obvious to us, but not to them, obviously.
Yeah.
And Fain is just he's blubbering all over the place. He's crying, and he's like vacillating wildly between being like incredibly deferring to complete and utter arrogance. Like it's almost. I also get the sense that his accent and his way of talking also changes more than once. And he also mentions at one point that he will not be compelled, never again.
Mm.
And when you read the story the first time, you just read the word compelled like you do any other English word, right?
Ah,
Or its
was
literal
it with
meaning.
a capital C? I didn't remember.
It wasn't.
Oh.
But I mean, Moraine in the next chapter sort of expounds how things were done to him and how his mind was fucked with, and I'm pretty sure he was under the actual compulsion weave, if not multiple times, at least once. And so Padan Fain starts appealing to Lord Agelmar's ego, and he's going like, "Great High Lord, I can tell you how to defeat the shadow, and with my help, you can cleanse the world of the shadow forever because I hate it," and blah blah blah. And Agelmar just eventually goes, "Sure thinks a lot of himself, this peddler, doesn't he?
Mm.
Like, what is this peddler going to do to defeat the entire shadow?" But while he's sort of talking about it, he notices Moraine starting to move towards him, and then he has this like visible reaction, like he doesn't want Moraine to get anywhere near him. And as she walks around the table to get close to him, she actually walks up to Matt, and she stops behind Matt, and she whispers in Matt's ear something, and Matt lets go of the dagger, like Matt had been holding it, and he lets go. So we'll almost finish with this chapter. We'll get back to this, but I want to touch on that. Like, has he
So do I.
been
I can't-
affected by more death or not? You can't keep it in.
I can't keep it in any longer.
Well, it basically is just like she just says, her exact words are, "I'm afraid he's more than a peddler, Lord Agelmar, less than human, worse than vile, and more dangerous than you can imagine." So a couple of hints there at maybe there being some kind of more death influence already at this stage. And we just end with her basically insinuating that she needs to interrogate him right now. We can wash him afterwards, because she mentioned earlier, have someone wash him and I'll interrogate him. But then when she sort of catches a glimpse of what's going on, she's like, "No, I need to talk to him right now. We can wash him afterwards." So do you guys think, this little bit of the chapter sort of does make it seem like
Yes.
there's some more death going on here, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I mentioned chapters ago. Like, didn't
You
he
did.
already,
You did.
Didn't he already fuse with Mordeth in book one?
Yes.
And this, for me, justifies it. That this is a confirmation.
I was dismissive of that theory last time, but this makes it pretty clear to me.
He was.
that is exactly
we're
what's
going to
happening.
get to it in the next chapter now, and during the interrogation, some of this comes out. But he was tied up by 4 Fates and driven in as the Hound to found the boys into Shadow Logoth at that stage. And he escaped them during the carnage of Mashadar.
Yes.
And I hold the belief that the only way for him to get out was actually Mordeth luring him in to help him to get out of that city, Shadow Logoth. And from then already he's had that taint on him, and he's been carrying. So that's something that's been sort of written about in some of the other stuff that I was reading at that time that I was reading on that chapter. But definitely.
To me, that that description, I mean, we are jumping ahead to the next chapter where Moraine sort of recounts the stuff that she did get out of him, and we'll delve into that when we get there. But since it's, pertinent to this topic, when she explains that he was in Shadow Logoth and how he escaped when Mashadar killed the Trolloc that was holding his leash, basically, and he got out of there, that actually went, for me, the other way, in explaining that he somehow got into contact with Mordeth. And it must have happened between that moment when the Trolloc was killed holding him and him trying to get out of the city. Like you said, Vili, maybe Mordeth appears to him and he sees someone desperate to get out, and this is a person that could, this is my ticket out of here. This guy just wants to get out. Let me give him something or go accompany him, or,
Yeah, he has a dagger. Follow me.
Oh, you're gonna have to protect yourself. Take this dagger. Also, this terrible taint.
Yes.
But yes, I mean, this conversation certainly makes it seem. I mean, Moraine saying that he is more dangerous than you can imagine.
Also explains the dual personalities, like when he's groveling, he's Padan, and when he's arrogant, he's Mordeth.
Yes, exactly.
Or looking for the precious.
Yes. I didn't want to say it. Someone else has to say it. I'm not going to be the only one every time.
Do they say earlier in the book or when you meet him that he is from Lugard?
I have no idea.
Or is this the first mention of his Lugarder accent?
Well, he is a traveler. He is, he's not from the two
I'm
rivers.
just trying to piece together, where these additional personalities are coming from. He's displaying signs of multiple personalities, right? Like he's changing his voice and his tone and his demeanor and stuff almost like within seconds of each other.
Well,
so
he's been absolutely tortured as well by various people and entities up until this point. Imagine the compulsion that is so great in you that you do not care to stop to eat. You eat on the run after your quarry. He probably literally runs and shits himself as he's doing all of this, and that's why he's as vile and filthy as he is.
Yes. Okay, well, so look, if there's nothing that we want to sort of delve into in this chapter, then let's get into the next chapter where Moraine actually comes back and she explains exactly what she drew out of him.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 47 is More Tales of the Wheel. Vili, why don't you enlighten us about good old Mr. Fain?
Oh, more tales of Mr. Dirty Fain. Well, yeah, Moraine has taken him away. She's doing the interrogation. Rand is pacing up and down, sort of getting irritated by the fact that he knows the table is exactly 12 paces long. And eventually stopped counting the paces and just counted the many times he paced up and down the side of the table. And eventually Moraine sort of reappears out of there. Well, before we get there, Nynaeve and Egwene is talking to Lord Algmar. And he seems to be a gracious host. And he gets them to have a little laugh now and then. But eventually the question comes up asking about, is Lan a king, or why do they call him these names? And the banner of the Golden Crane, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, well, okay. He drops the whole story of Lan being the Lord of the Seven Towers and goes into quite a bit of detail of the history, which is a bit of a sad one. Basically, Lan's mom and dad, his dad was a king. His brother Lane, his Lane's wife, they had the son Isam. So we spoke earlier about Isam, that is now the Slayer, potentially. They weren't too stoked that their son was next in line, or actually that her husband, which was Lane, wasn't the crown king or in line for the throne, and that obviously Lan was now going to come into the picture and be the next in line. And while the king Al-Akir was out in the Borderlands fighting, they plotted with Cohen. And there was a bit of a coup d'etat that didn't work out well for them. But that was also the result of Malkier falling, or the Seven Towers falling, that their forces was just too weak and down, as far as I understand it, to hold.
Yeah, so what happened was there's actually like another story. Like Lane's wife dared him to go into the blight and go strike at Shyle Ghul or do some like heroic mission. And he did. Now the king and Lane, so Lan's dad, Al-Akir, and Lane, his brother, were super, super close. And even more so when Al-Akir became king. And they were beloved by the people, and they were both legendary heroes. But what's her name? Brienne?
Brienne.
Some whatever. Queen bitch. She
Lady Macbeth.
she was jealous that it wasn't Lane that became king. At this stage, Isom is still an infant, tiny baby. And she dares Lane to go into the Blight on this heroic mission. And then he and a bunch of the Lancers die. And then she blames the king, Al-Akir, for not going himself, saying the mission would have been a success if he had gone. Why did you let your brother go and die? And then she starts plotting with another High Lord in, so what is his name?
Cowan, yes, Cowan.
Something like that. He almost became king, Cowan. He only lost the vote to become king by 2 votes. So he was very close to becoming king. So he was open to plotting against Al-Akir. And so was Lane's widow, because she wanted Isom to be the king. And what they did was they drew the forces out of the border forts towards the 7 towers in order to do a coup. And because they pulled those forces out of the border forts, they were overrun by Trollocs. And that's why the Trollocs overran Malkier, because of this internal conflict. And eventually Queen Bitch and her son Isom were run down by Trollocs, and no one knows what happens to them. And that's how Isom ended up in the town. That's how he was raised in the Blight by Dark Friends and became Slayer in conjunction with Luke.
There we go.
Huh.
Cowan was killed by Jane Fastrider.
Cowan was caught by Jane Fastrider, but instead of executing him, the king, Al-Akir, challenged him to one-on-one combat and killed him that way. Like, this is how deep the honor runs. Like, the king himself fights this traitor, who's also a war hero, and then manages to kill him and then cries about it.
Yes.
Some people say he wept for the loss of a friend, and other people say they wept for Malkier.
Yeah.
And that's when they sort of, you'll get to this now, the story of Lan.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously at this whole explanation of who he is, jaws were dropping. I think you can say the least.
Nynaeve looking decidedly awkward.
Yeah, like, oh dear, what happened? Yeah.
Who is this man I love?
Who is this man I want to be with?
I am not worthy of him. He will never choose me, blah, 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 feeling inadequate.
There we go.
30 years of romantic comedies.
Yeah, I read between the lines.
Yeah. Rand obviously eavesdropping and listening to this whole story is like, oh my goodness, all right. There we go. Got that. And that's when Moraine comes back and sort of, she's dealt with shit, literally.
Yes, has to wash her hands.
Have to wash my hands. Sorry, Lord Algmar, that I have sent your servants to get my bed. It's like that. My servants, your servants, carry on. Wash your hands. Please, I do insist.
Yes.
And she starts laying down just how the interrogation went with Padan Fain. And man, what a deep run story on how long he has been on the run. And now we can get back onto the Fain thing.
Yes.
Where 3 years or 3 summers ago already, he was already a hound for the Dark One, looking for the boys. I don't know to how deep that extent that has sort of reached and what the purpose was for it. But they then start to remember that the 1 year he stayed behind a whole week longer than he normally did.
And he arrived late.
And he arrived late as well. And that's the year that he was sort of interrogated.
He was at Shyle Ghul.
Yeah, they captured him, ran him to Shyle Ghul, and to torture him or to strike fear into him would make him sleep in a Trollocs kettle at night.
Yeah.
Of what they'll do to him when they get there. Like, absolutely breaking him down. I wonder if we'll see some of that scenes in the show.
That is the Fade that took control of Fain between Taryn Ferry and Berlon made him sleep in the kettle.
I was that was then.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Was
that's
recent kettle sleeping.
some recent
Mhm.
kettle sleeping, and then he got away from them at Tarwin Ferry, but they caught him again.
Yes, a different fade.
Mm.
Shitty
That
luck.
was Murrundi, I think at Murrundi or something that he was.
That's the original one. So a fade came to him because Fane had been a dark friend for, I think they said 40 years or something.
Yeah.
Like he's been a dark friend for a long time, which just reinforces, Vili, your perception of him in the first chapters that he arrives, of him being old. But yeah, he's been a dark friend for a long time. A fade comes for him in Mirundi originally to summon him to Shal Ghul, and that's when they go. And
He
that's
thought
when
that
he
he
gets.
was going to also get the riches, that sort of
He
the
thought that this was a
honor.
great honor, and instead they fucking mind raped him and then sent him on his way to search out for the boys. And or for the Dragon Reborn, and as he spent more and more time in the Two Rivers, he got summoned back. Like every year, he would go back to Shal Ghul and they would distill his mind, it says, and then he would come back with an even keener sense of what it was that he was looking for, to the point where it actually surprised the Shadowspawn. Like he was actually better at finding them than they thought he would be, and that's why
They didn't believe him that he told them no, they're not there in this direction.
When they are escaping after Winter Night, when they go to Tarwin Ferry and they cross the River Tarwin, at one point Moraine sends a smell, their
Yes,
scent off
cast.
towards the mountains, and that's when Fane says, "Don't believe that. It's this way." And the Fades go, no, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. And they follow, and then eventually they realize it. And I think they cut him loose, or he gets away, or something. And then another Fade finds him,
Now,
makes him sleep in a kettle.
some little kettle. Now, I was wondering now on this, because this compulsion that he has now, and they even speak of it, that while she's interrogating him, he looks up towards the room where they are. Is the part of that not also the dagger that's drawing him, and the part that is
Probably.
what is his name now? Mordeth. That's
Mhm.
the point. So now he's got both of these forces in him: the compulsion to get the boys, as well as Mordeth to get the dagger. There's that doubling layer of crazy hunting going on.
Yes, yes. I mean, his dark friendness would draw him to the dagger. The fact that he is somewhat possessed by more death would also draw him to the dagger. And the Dark One has honed his mind in a way to seek out
Now,
the
why
boys.
didn't they just slit his throat just right there and then? Just do us all a favor and just don't even wash him. Just slit his throat.
Yeah, should have. Hey, hindsight.
Or maybe when he ran up the wall, they just loosed an arrow and shot him in the head, and then
Oh, he's so wretched.
I've been telling you guys this fuckhead should have died long ago, since chapter 1.
Yeah.
But here he is.
Here he is, still climbing walls,
Yeah. Still shitting himself.
still shitting himself. And with all this news, like Moraine wants to move on. Like this is a lot. He needs to stay alive. Keep him in jail. I need to interrogate him more. But time is pressing. The wheel doesn't stand still. We have to move on. And he offers 100 lances or 10 of his best men to go with, because surely these farm boys aren't going to serve your purpose while you're out there. And she repeatedly, like, no, they're Taviran. They're part of the pattern. I want no men. I don't want to be seen. We want to be able to move quickly. It's thank you, but no. And basically to the point where he accepts and sort of looks at the boys almost scornfully and kind of like, yeah, this is a bad decision. But he gets at least a party of them to sort of write him off to the boundary or the border gate or something, where and that was what was his name? Ingtar.
Ingtar,
yeah.
That's often you're stretching beyond this chapter because you've just finished the book.
Oh yeah. Moritz, have you finished reading the book?
I have not.
No, right.
I've only read the chapters we're covering now.
Oh, Vili and I are way ahead of you. I couldn't put it down.
No, could I? But that's basically it. That they have to go and they've got to go and fight the Eye of the World, and that's that chapter. A lot of Lan's history and a lot of Fain's pain.
Yeah.
Good. Fuck that guy.
We didn't really touch on Lan, but the fact that he, as a baby, was sent with 20 of the best fighters from Malkier. Like as Malkier was falling, they sent him as an infant. They anointed him as the king, the next king. They gave him
Locket and a sword.
their family sword, which was made by Aes Sedai during the War of Power. So yes, again, we were right. His sword is
Confirmation,
power
yeah.
wrought. Yeah. And only 5 of those 20 fighters actually made it.
Yeah.
All of them injured, but the baby untouched. And those same 5 fighters taught him how to fight, which is cool.
That is great.
Like he was born with a sword in his hands, literally. Like born,
Yes.
put in a crib. He has a sword. Take these 20 warriors and off you go.
Yeah, it's very cool. Vili, the point that you read up to in the books, has Lan raised the banner of the Golden Crane?
Yes,
No.
he has.
When?
He has?
Not in book 1.
Where I've read up to.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. But isn't that in the last book?
No, it was book. I want to say almost towards the end of book 11. I want to think.
Okay, maybe. Well, if you know about it, then yeah, it must be. But that's quite cool. Isn't it Nynaeve that sort of she travels ahead of them along the Borderlands,
Yeah.
spreading the word that he's
Yes.
coming, and he's following her because he's bonded to her at that stage, and he's trying to reach her, and she's sort of just staying ahead of him, telling everyone,
he's coming.
Be on the lookout.
Do it.
He's coming. He's
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
He's raising the banner, and then he does.
Oh man, I'm now again so easy just to start reading and just reading ahead.
So much good shit.
Oh yeah.
At one point, when Agelmar is telling the story of Lan, and Nynaeve is looking particularly dejected, Egwene touches her arm and sort of comforts Nynaeve. Has Nynaeve admitted to A, herself, and B, Egwene, that she has some sort of interest,
Of course.
in Lan?
Yeah, the girls have these little private moments all the time. The women, sorry.
There's a lot of
And,
whispering.
Yeah. They may have said something, or Egwene's not an idiot. She knows.
Yeah,
She can
true.
tell.
She probably just picked up on it.
Yeah. There you go. Problem solved.
Okay, cool. It's fucking clear as daylight that Nynaeve is reacting to the story of Lan. But either I was just a complete idiot, I hadn't watched enough romantic comedies or anything, but I don't remember being it that obvious that Lan and Nynaeve had some kind of thing between them in book 1 already.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that at all either. This is the first time. This is the third time I'm reading these books.
And I mean, and it's so blatant.
Yeah,
You know,
totally in your
we
face.
are, oh man, we are idiots. Okay.
Men are idiots. That is the theme in the books.
Yes.
What you're reading and you just like flicking your eyes to like, okay, cool, yep, wop, dreamland, yep. Battle. Intently
Yes.
reading.
Yes, you said that last time.
Woman, wop.
Speak for yourself.
Rubbish.
I love a romantic comedy.
We're well aware.
My first note from this chapter is Lord Agelmar is a good host. He's incredible. He makes Nynaeve, quote unquote, roar with laughter. Nobody does that.
No, he's a special kind of man.
He is very charming, obviously. I mean, can you imagine Nynaeve, this fucking walking thundercloud personified, just laughing uproariously?
No, I can't imagine it. No,
It doesn't fit.
Does not compute.
No. So anything else from this one? I mean, this is all set up, right? Like this, the last couple of chapters is just all exposition. It's all just like info.
It's info, makes the story settle. I just still wish Archer would have just loosed that arrow, or even maybe Matt. That arrow he
Matt
shot in
tried.
the ways. He should have just landed that, but obviously the arrow was traveling at a different speed. And
Who's the
physics-
village idiot now, Lan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt had it right.
All right. So, do you guys have a favorite moment? Did you remember to?
I read your message, so yes, I did make note of it.
Okay. So, why don't you go first, Joe?
This is the first time I've actually got a favorite moment. My favorite moment is in my chapter, my first one, where they are in the library making the plans, and all of this information starts bubbling up, and Moraine clicks that Eye of the World scenario. Like they get those 3 messages when finally
It's a
after the
turning
entire
point.
book, that entire book, like the message that got Sightblinder's eye from the Aiel, the Tinker's message, and the message in Steading Shanghai all coming together and making plan B, Eye of the World.
And the boy saying that Belzemon's talking about the Eye of the World in their
Exactly.
dreams.
Like
Moraine's
all of this
like,
stuff that's come out, everything is out in the open now, new plan. And finally, we get to actually hear somebody talking about the Eye of the World, which is the name of this book. It's been kind of like an afterthought the entire time. And now it's like, all right, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
That's
very cool. Yeah. Love it. Love it. It is a turning point. It's sort of like, okay, they're shifting into 5th gear now.
Yeah.
This is the home stretch of the story, right? Like there's only, at that point, there's only 12 chapters left. And they are still in Camelin, right?
Yeah.
They're still in the middle of Randland. Only 12 chapters of the first book. Yeah, go do something. Okay.
Yeah, the pace really picks up from here.
How about you, Vil?
I would definitely say the land's whole background story as the King of Malkier.
Cool. Yes.
Just laying that in, like what a deep person this really is. And as part of that and binding into that is when he walks in, everyone's calling him, what's it, Daishan?
Daishan.
Yes.
Are you going to raise the banner? Are we going to be, everyone's just amped for the battle now. Like there was maybe a bit of dread for going and preparing to go to Town's Gap to fight there. And now they're kind of like, oh man, we got land and an Aes Sedai. Amped.
Yes.
No, you don't.
Oh man. Okay, so mine is all about the ways.
Anything about the ways.
Just anything about the ways. I'm so into how fucking spooky and terrifying the ways are. I mean, I think this is still a holdover from my first read. The impact that Machin Shin has had on me. I've brought it up when we recorded our, proof of concept episode for this podcast, and we were talking, and one of the girls ran past in the hallway screaming because it was in the middle of the day. I made a Machin Shin joke back then because I've always held this sort of opinion of the ways in Machin Shin as being utterly terrifying. Like it's bone chilling. And just reading it again now just reaffirmed that. So those fears are now nice and fresh.
Yeah, yes. And all those lovely screams and that Villy quoted for us.
Platted flesh.
Those sweet screams.
Yeah, stop it. All
right, so our next episode is going to cover the rest of the Eye of the World. So it is chapters 48 through 53. The first one is The Blight. And I mean, what a meaty section to just finish off with, right? Like straight into The Blight, through the Eye of the World, and then the final chapter is The Wheel Turns.
Jody, you seem exhausted already.
That's just exhausting. All this.
But you've just read it.
Yeah, I'll read it again. I'm going to have to anyway for recording purposes. But yeah, with pleasure. I'll read it 3 times again. But yeah, no, definitely. This has been a nice stretch, and we're coming in. I mean, one more episode, and yeah, shit goes down.
Yes, it sure does. All right, so then I'll take one last opportunity to remind our listeners to look us up on Twitter at Blood and Ash Pod, or on Facebook, Blood and Ashes Podcast, or just go to our website, bloodandashespodcast.com, and reach out to us. Correct all these purposefully inserted inaccuracies so that we have things to talk about directly to you. I don't think anyone's going to buy that. We're just fucking idiots.
No.
But on that note, I will bid you both a fond adieu and see you next time.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Have a good one.